I mean, this boy had to ask for my dad's permission to even date me.
One time I was dating a guy and the homeschooled parents, they put a video camera in our room.
No!
Webcam to keep an eye on us.
That's
while
so
we were
creepy.
playing video games.
That's so creepy.
Oh,
Hello,
welcome
Or welcome back,
to the Womanly Podcast.
where we embrace womanhood in its entirety.
from the hard and awkward conversations.
To the silly and embarrassing moments.
An effort to reclaim and redefine what it means to be womanly in this crazy, wacky world. I'm Delana, the neutral one.
I'm Katie, the morbid one.
And I'm Madeline, the other one. And we're so excited that you've joined us today because there's room for you at our table.
So, grab your favorite drink and let's have a conversation.
So Womanly is a BYOB podcast. I am just drinking water.
Not just water.
Oh, I'm
though.
sorry. It's a $3 bottle of water, which means that it's the healthiest water on the planet. I got my tax return in, so whenever I was choosing, I went for the bougie one. 100% natural spring water. Shout out to Poland Spring Water. Sponsor us.
Sponsor us because we're drinking it this one time.
This one time. Never again because I'm broke now.
We're sharing.
I am drinking water as well, called an ocean water from Sonic.
Which is probably the least healthy water
The
on
least
the planet.
healthy water, but it is from the ocean, so
And
it's arguable.
It is the bluest water on the planet.
Yeah.
I'm drinking a Dr. Pepper with vanilla and cream.
Yeah.
It's not water, but it has water in it.
It started as water
Mm-hmm.
at some point in its life.
Didn't everything?
Didn't we all start as water at one point, maybe?
So, guys, how was your snow week? We had a nice big snowstorm. Big for Texas.
Yeah.
Quotes.
Yeah.
Air quotes.
Ice storm.
Ice storm here in Texas. So what'd you guys do? Did you do anything special, different?
I edited the last episode of this podcast.
The last and the
With my
first,
husband.
as in the previous,
previous,
and the
yeah.
first.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it.
Did Cashew like the snow?
No.
No. It feels like he wouldn't because he's so close to it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
His little belly get
cold.
cold.
So cute.
He was not a fan.
Do you
but-
guys put a sweater on him?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did.
Makes
I
sense.
still worked. I worked from home. I watched a lot of TV, so I finished Manifest and Archive 81. Both are very good. I feel like kind of creepy, supernatural, psych thriller type shows. And I finished a book, which was great. But aside from that, I just stayed inside. My dogs love being out in the snow, so we got a little bit of that. But what about you?
We didn't really do anything different. Sam and I, my husband, we both work from home, and so we kept working, and we watched movies and ate food. I mean, cuddled
a
with
good
our
time.
kitties.
That's a good time. Well, I'm so close to losing my cool because your cat keeps sticking its paw under the door.
I know.
It's so
cute.
Well, we're going to talk about homeschooling in this episode. All three of us are those weirdo homeschoolers that you hear about. One of the things that we want to talk about, too, before we even get started is just kind of a disclaimer to say that anything that we say here isn't a blanket endorsement or dismissal of homeschooling. We're just speaking directly to our own experiences with it, and we'll likely have differing opinions and experiences even within this room. Ultimately, our hope is to have an open conversation that would provide insight into homeschooling from a variety of perspectives. And then also, all three of us were homeschooled in Texas, and I just want to make the note that saying that homeschooling regulations differ from state to state. So we can just really kind of talk about our experience in the state of Texas. A little bit about my background with homeschooling is I was actually homeschooled K through 12, so my whole life. In that time, I went to 4 different co-ops or enrichments that we like to call them. I won't say where they're at because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus in this conversation, but just say they're in the DFW area to give some context. Throughout that time, my mom stayed home with us and my dad worked. So we did have a one-income household. Contrary to popular belief about homeschoolers, I did participate in a lot of things, and I was pretty social. I was in sports and dance, theater, 4-H. I did music and choir. I was on a robotics team because I'm just nerdy that way. And then other activities throughout my childhood. And yes, we did do homecoming dances and proms. In high school, I followed the Texas Distinguished Diploma Program and did dual credit courses at my local community college. And my graduating class was about 43 people, and I was 17. I did go to a public university. I went to Texas Tech University and got my bachelor's and master's degree. And kind of an interesting little piece of information to keep in mind with all of this is that I have actually taught 9th through 12th grade high schoolers in a public school setting. And I hold a secondary teaching certification. Yeah, I did it because I thought maybe I might want to homeschool, or not homeschool, might want to teach someday. And while I was in school, I figured I might as well just go ahead and do the program for it and get it taken care of in case I ever decided to follow through on that thought and wouldn't have to go back and do it at a later date. I will say I did teach in high school. I am certified to do middle school as well. I think I might enjoy doing middle school better, but I haven't done it yet. But I just do tend to enjoy middle schoolers a little bit better. But that's my background with it.
So I was homeschooled up to 7th grade, and then I went to public school for 8th and 9th grade. And then this is where I was laughing because Madeline had prepared notes ahead of time and I was using her notes to help.
Because I'm super type A.
I was using her notes to like help me prepare my notes as like prompts basically because I wasn't in a good headspace to do my own. And so I was using hers, and this is where I started laughing because I was like, mine is going to be so freaking I'm going to try to say this without it sounding depressing. So I was homeschooled up to 7th grade, public school to 8th and 9th grade. Then I got extreme social anxiety and depression, and I didn't want to go to public school anymore. And so I asked to be homeschooled again, and I was homeschooled again. But I was so depressed at the time that I couldn't do my homework. And my mom was working and my dad is a lowlife, and so he didn't care. And so
God, Gary.
God, Gary. He's such a Gary. Yeah. Okay. There was like no accountability. I was probably like 15 years old, and then struggling with depression, like how much willpower are you going to have to do your homework? Kids already don't want to do their homework,
Mm-hmm.
Then I just eventually started working full time when I was 16. I never went back to school. I never got like an official diploma, but I got my GED when I was 22 whenever I wanted to go to cosmetology school, which I did.
Girl.
And I finished.
It's awesome.
I'm trying to see if I missed anything else. No, I didn't, because like I'm looking at your journey and I'm like, oh, there's so many more steps in this. And for me, it was just kind of like once I kind of didn't go back to school, I guess I started my career path. And so in terms of homeschooling, that was kind of like where it all ended.
Yeah. What about you, Katie?
Well, I was homeschooled.
What?
I went to private school for a year. We started homeschooling after that. They pulled us out because the schooling system was just not for my family.
Yeah.
So basically my whole school life, my mom homeschooled us and my dad worked. And I had a pretty ideal homeschool life. It was really great and educational and fun, and I have 2 sisters who are close in age to me, so we were all in it together. And
now you are working on your doula certification.
Did you do any school after?
You went to YWAM.
If you would consider YWAM.
Yeah, she did a discipleship training school for like 6 months. But Katie's she's been a full-time nanny for a while now, which is
been a full-time nanny since after the year I graduated.
Honestly, what you do, I couldn't do what you do. All right, so we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the weird of homeschooling. We'll start on a high note. We'll start with the good.
I have like really warm, fuzzy memories of it being like warm outside, and my mom would sometimes, even though my mom was never a stay-at-home mom, so she was never like full-time homeschooling us, but she actually worked 2 jobs most of my childhood. She would work waitress at 2 different restaurants, but I think because she was in the restaurant industry, I can't remember that well, like when she was home and when she wasn't. Like
hours are
days,
weird.
Yeah. But I feel like she was probably home like more during the week and worked a lot all
Weekends,
weekend.
yeah.
But I do remember there would be like times where she would have us do like these really, really fun projects to like help us either learn something about science or something like that like it would be all me and my siblings that would be like doing it outside on the picnic table or something like that. That was like
that's fun.
Always like just warm fuzzy. And that's the thing, I have 4 siblings, so I feel like being able to be homeschooled with a bunch of siblings just makes it super fun. Like
I agree.
you all become super, super close, and they're like your friends, you know?
Yeah.
That's one of the things about homeschooling that I love.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar to you, like the warm fuzzy memories of homeschooling, like going on picnics for lunch just to like get out of the house. Yeah, like warm fuzzy feelings, and just really cozy too, like in the winter doing school in your pajamas by the fire and like having hot cocoa. And
what's funny is that I wouldn't like look back on my experiences and call them warm and fuzzy. Not that they were like bad, but it was just school, and I'm not sure. I mean, like I have warm fuzzy memories from my childhood, but they're not associated with having been homeschooled or doing school. But for on the family side of things, I do think that being homeschooled gave us the space and the time to really bond. Just because you're not in a classroom 8 to 4 every day for 8 or 9 months.
Yeah, and that makes you not separated from your siblings too, because even though you're working on different things and, you know, in different stages of your education, you're still doing it together. And that's fun.
Yeah.
And as a family, we went through some really, really tough stuff most of my childhood. And like if it wasn't one person, it was somebody else. So I think it was helpful for us. The good thing about it is it just gave us that time and space to get through it together as a family. So that was more of like our bonding was just that we were able to really be there for one another and be a strong family unit. That was really nice. So that was a good thing for us.
And did you guys ever go out to like you could go and do things at odd hours that like none of your friends got to do, because you would like go to the mall or something in the middle of the day, and then sometimes people would be like, what are you
doing out of school?
Yeah, what are you doing out of school?
Be like, I'm educated at home, bitch.
You should try it.
Mom would be like, if someone asks you that, just say you're educated at home. It's none of their business anyway.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be asking you what you're doing out of school.
Yeah.
We didn't have that.
Oh, you didn't?
No. And it's actually like probably one of the weird things is that we weren't allowed to play outside until after 3 p.m. on a school day, because but I grew up in a town of like between 2,000 and 3,000 people, and people there were like really nosy. So if somebody saw kids just playing outside, they're probably gonna like talk to somebody about it and be like, what the heck's going on?
Ruined something perfectly innocent.
I mean, we still had fun. Like I don't look back on that restriction as being something that like diminished my experience growing up whatsoever. I mean, we had schoolwork to do during that time anyway, but obviously depending on what you've got and how much of a self-starter you are, and you finish like around 1, it was just like you gotta wait a couple hours, but you know, so that the schools are out so that you can just go outside and play. So no, we weren't really. I mean, we go, I don't know, I guess we go grocery shopping every once in a while, but we didn't do like fun things. We didn't go to the mall.
Hey, those are few and far between.
Homeschool day though, homeschool days at like Six Flags and stuff.
Oh, yes.
Those are fun.
We never did that. We were too poor. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was a big deal. Like we'd all load up, and we always went to Cracker Barrel afterward.
We would carpool with somebody who had a big van.
Yeah.
Like 8 seats.
The 12-seat vans that homeschoolers drive.
I can't remember who. I think.
Dude, we didn't get one of those. My dad didn't get a 15-passenger van until we were all like out of high school.
Did he know it was too late at that point?
He always wanted one for some reason.
Why? All the space? Dads are so weird.
I don't know. But he thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
That's the most dad thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Homeschool
it was
dad.
Ultra dad.
Ultra dad with the 15-passenger van.
Yeah. And
God,
at that point we were like, why?
one of the other good things about homeschooling, I feel like it helped me become a self-starter and like learn to manage my workload. So, and those have been skills that have helped me like through college and stuff and in my career. And I point that out because I feel as though with my experience in that, as well as the experience of people I know who have been public schooled, I feel like public schooling, you have so many people who are on top of you about homework and getting things done, and you do it in the class period and stuff. Whereas for me, in my experience, it was like a lot more of a college schedule and structure where we had class once or twice a week, and then we had like a week's worth of work to do between classes, and it was up to you to get it done. So I feel like that was something for me that ended up being a really good experience because it helped transitioning into college, because it was very similar. The expectations were really similar. Yeah. And I didn't have to learn that all at once, like within my freshman year of college, because it was something I was already doing for myself. I don't know, do y'all feel that at all?
No, because I remember my mom always getting mad at me and my brothers because we would not get our homework done. Like
my brother and sister were kind of like that. Like they weren't interested in, but maybe it's just because I'm a weirdo.
But the thing is that like there were a lot of things that I really, really liked learning, and I still like, I just liked learning in general. Yeah. But I think it was really hard for my mom because she did work 2 jobs. And so like, she would be like, you need to do this, this, and this. And whenever you're like 8 years old, you're like, not going to do this, this, and that. You're going to be like, I want to play video games or I want to go make mud pies in the backyard. So I'm going to go do that.
We wanted to go play croquet because we were 80 years old.
Wait, really?
Yeah. We loved playing croquet.
I feel like we probably would have played it too if we had it.
I don't think we played it right. It was just really fun to go out there and like hammer the heck out of some balls.
Yeah. So I just remember whenever we were really young, I would get yelled at all the time for not doing my homework because my mom just didn't have the opportunity to like stay on top of us as much as she should have. She would like, she did everything, like she would lay it out. Okay, this is what you need to do. This is what I want you to do today, you know? And then we just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I get so much there's so much satisfaction that I get from crossing something off my to-do list. And I've literally always been that way. Even as like a 3 or 4 year old, I would like scribble lists. I didn't know how to write words, but I would just like lines and lines and lines on paper. So whenever I say I'm type A, like, yes. So I guess it was personality thing that it was just easy for me to kind of get a lot of satisfaction out of doing it. And so because I felt satisfied and fulfilled with what I was doing, it was easier for me to just do it on my own.
Yeah. I feel like for me, I lived in kind of a dichotomy because like my mom was always kind of like self-reliant and self-starter and stuff like that. Like she doesn't really need the accountability as much. And there's a lot of that in me. But my dad was the complete opposite, where he was like, he would never like initiate anything responsible, essentially. And so every once in a while he'd come out and he'd be like, hey, you guys want to go get Dairy Queen? And we'd be like, hell yeah. We're all like 8, 10, 12 years old. Of course we want to get Dairy Queen. But like, so there was like this weird, and I think that's why I was just kind of, I knew that I had responsibilities, but Dad, who was home with us a lot, he wasn't doing it. So
yeah, he was like, let's go get ice cream.
Yeah.
It's not like we'll get ice cream after you finish your homework. It's let's go get ice cream right now.
Which that stuff happened too, but that would like only happen whenever my mom was like really on my dad about being like, you need to make sure that they're doing these things.
Yeah. My mom was super on top of it. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. She's a boss.
My mom did. I have to give huge props to my mom because I feel like she did like literally so much with the power that she had, you know? So,
well, it sounds like she like managed everything she had on her plate and then some.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Moms are superheroes, literally. I love that with homeschooling, we had like opportunities to be involved in things and like travel. And do like field trips and stuff that you wouldn't really get the opportunity to do in public school. I don't really have like a super good example of this, but just whatever went along with our curriculum. If we had like a random Wednesday and my mom wanted to like set up a field trip to like the water treatment plant or something, we could go do that. And it was just more of it wasn't so much like curriculum based or whatever the school system or the state was setting up for you. It was like whatever you thought, like you using your resources in your area and just setting it up for a time that worked best for you and your family, and really getting that one-on-one experience with what you were witnessing. Mm-hmm. I thought that was super cool. I'm very much a hands-on learner though, so
I feel like you get a lot more hands-on with homeschooling.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's a lot more customized.
Yeah.
To the student.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any like field trips that y'all went on that y'all know? I mean, I said the water treatment plant. That's not the most exciting one we ever did.
We went to the water treatment.
Yeah.
For some reason, that's like the most memorable one that I have, that I feel like we went on. It's like weird though, because it wasn't even like that interesting.
Yeah, it's not like sexy, right? Like it's not like a fascinating thing to go see, but it's you do remember it.
Yeah.
It is memorable.
Yeah. I remember how it smelled.
Yeah. Right?
Water treatment plant. I don't know anything about
it. It smelled minerally.
This is like sewage water that they treat and clean to become potable water or tap water. Oh. So
I remember going to see how money was made. That was fun.
We didn't do anything like that.
That was really fun.
Oh, maybe we did.
I remember going to the Dallas Aquarium.
Dallas Aquarium, the zoo.
Money. I remember seeing, there's nothing about what you said. It just reminded me of, I think the closest thing we ever got to a field trip was one time we went to Krispy Kreme and saw the donuts were being made.
Hey, that's a better field trip than money.
For children. I think we only talked about going to field trips, but we never actually did any.
Yeah.
So cute.
Hey, donut making is an important work.
It's importante.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't there for a field trip. That's
yes.
It was another one of Dad's crazy ideas.
No, it was my mom that took us.
Oh,
nice.
And she took us on, I think, some random Sunday because that Krispy Kreme had just opened up and it was close to our church. And so we went. It was just whenever you were talking about, we went and we saw how money gets made. And then I was like,
we saw how donuts.
I saw how Krispy Kreme donuts got made.
It's not really a unique experience because it's kind of their thing.
And then I was like, that's the closest thing I got to a homeschool field trip.
That's pretty amazing though, honestly.
That is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one of the other fun things that we did, and I'm not sure if y'all ever did this, but we would like, if they had like an old toaster or microwave, they would like sit us down and have us take it apart and try to put it back together.
No.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I'm sure that none of them, they probably never plugged those in ever again because I'm sure something really bad would happen had they done that once we put it back together. But it was just like having the hands-on experiences of like learning, like this is what a circuit board looks like. And we did dissections and stuff. We had some classes. Like all of our science classes we took outside the house. Yeah, one of the other benefits or one of the cool things was like with our science classes, we had a science teacher who we would basically go for like 2 weeks in the summer and do all of the lab work in the summer. And then throughout the school year, we would do all of the actual like curriculum lessons. So just to kind of like split up the time so that it was easier to get it in during the co-op days. So we did all the labs in the summer. That was so fun. Did y'all have like any like experience much peer pressure or bullying in homeschooling?
No.
I
would mark that as something good in my experience. I never experienced
I didn't really
bullying.
either.
No, in fact, whenever I remember I went to the 2 years of public school that I did, I didn't really experience a lot of bullying. I would say a little bit, but there was peer pressure. And I remember this one specific moment where I was at the lunch table. We had all finished eating. We were just waiting for them to dismiss us back to the next period to start. And for some reason, all of my friends they all knew that I was homeschooled, and they all noticed that I never cussed.
Yeah.
Like I never said any curse words or anything like that.
People are so on top of trying to you know, what's the word? Corrupt the homeschool girl.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was the most funny situation because you would think that because I was such a timid little child.
Yeah.
You would think that I would have crumbled under all of that. But they were like telling me, they're like, just say shit, you know, and they would like went down the whole list of like all the words, and they just like kept saying it until the period rang, and I was literally just looking at them like, no, like
Why though?
you guys are, do you know how stupid you sound? Like
Yeah.
that's how I felt inside, is I was like, you're
to.
not gonna get me to say any, I'm not gonna do it just because you want me to. Like, I just literally, I had like this sense of, you think you have so much power over me right now, and you just sound like an idiot. You know, and like I it was peer pressure, but I didn't feel pressure at all, you know. And I do contribute that to like being homeschooled long enough that you find some sense
you have a backbone.
of self. You
have convictions, I feel like, or you're able to develop and identify and stick to your convictions. And I'm not saying that public schoolers don't have that. There's certainly ones that do, but I think having the peer pressure and the bullying being so prevalent in the public school system, and probably the private school system too, from the start, that it makes it difficult for people.
Private school is literally no different. In fact, I would say it's worse.
Depending on the private school, yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot of that either. I think part of it is because the parents are so involved in homeschooling that behavior is just super in check. So like at our co-ops and our enrichments, like it's just parents that put it on basically, and they usually have a kid involved in some level. So no matter where you turn, there's like a mom or a dad, and they know who you are, they know your parents, and it's not like having this third party teacher who, they'll probably contact your parents, but they're not as involved and as invested in what the way parents were. So I think that partly had something to do with it, and the fact that like you just couldn't escape the fact that like no matter what, if you said something or did something wrong that hurt somebody else, like it's gonna be taken care of. And they're gonna sit you down, and you're gonna have a conversation with each other with the parents present, and it's not gonna be great. It's gonna be really embarrassing.
It's like in co-ops it's just like a family. Like we were all like so close and close knit that everyone knew who liked who, like everything. It was just like
no
all
privacy
knitted together.
You had no privacy, despite the fact that the vast majority of homeschool families are super private. And also you don't see each other every day. But everybody still knew everything despite those two things.
But I feel like that's just like people. Like people are like, no matter what the situation is, that's how it is in public school too. Like everybody is so nosy, and there's rumors and blah 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 blah. So I feel like a lot of people even say that about small towns. They're like, oh, everybody knows everyone. And I'm like, I just kind of feel like that's how it is everywhere.
Well, I mean, if you get into a town like my town of 2,000, yes, because most of those people are going to be related somehow. But you get into a town or like an area like DFW where there's 3 million people, like not everybody's going to know one another. There are really weird coincidences. Like it is a small world, but there's definitely levels to it. I will say too, like kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Katie, that is very community focused. Like one of the nice things that I think we had the opportunity to witness growing up is that a lot of it was moms helping moms and moms supporting moms, which is a really cool example. And it kind of makes me think about how society used to be, where it was like the whole village would raise kids together and feed kids together and stuff like that. And that was kind of how the homeschooling community worked. And that's not the case. I feel like, especially in America, we're such an individualistic society that it's every man for himself. But in homeschooling, it just wasn't like that. It was like if one family was failing, everybody was failing. So that was such a cool thing about homeschooling from my experience. And also no school buses.
I don't really feel that because we weren't really involved in like a homeschool community. We had in the small town that we lived in, there was one small, and obviously my mom was working a lot, so like she didn't really want to go outside of the, just an extra commute, with everything else going on, it was already enough for her. There was one small homeschool community group that started, and there was one really cool kid in that group.
And it was you?
No. There was only one normal child in that group. Everyone else was just friggin' like what people think homeschoolers are.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like the epitome of homeschoolers.
Yeah.
And me and my brothers were just kind of like, Mom, don't do this to us. Like we were just kind of like weirded out. We're like, we don't really know what to do with this. I kind of made friends with one girl, but then she just ended up being weird.
Yeah.
Like the rest of them.
Yeah, surprise of surprises.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that died pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We didn't keep attending that
Yeah.
group. So
Was that on Fridays?
I don't remember.
So everyone that I ever went to was on Fridays.
Yeah.
Like we had other classes that weren't a part of like the co-op
uh-huh.
that would happen throughout the week, but for co-ops and enrichments, everyone, all 4 of them I was a part of. It was always all day on Fridays. Not
Mhm.
sure why. I guess Friday was just a good day.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I always looked forward to Fridays.
Yeah.
I mean, co-op was literally the highlight of my week.
I would
would-
agree. to
I
an
mean,
extent,
it was just, it was not the only time I got out of the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was a time that you got to see literally everybody
You
at
got
once.
to see all your friends.
Yeah.
You got to, talk and hang out with your friends. And it was just sort of a reset for the next week.
Which is
Yeah.
really funny because, again, it's on a Friday, not like on a Monday.
I know. And it was always so fun because usually, we're coming up on the weekend and we go hang out with our friends
Yeah.
and like get our moms to
Is that
drop
when
us
you guys
off.
would like make the most plans?
Oh yeah.
Like you would be like, okay, we're
On the
gonna
weekends or
be at, no,
Fridays.
like Friday we're gonna be at co-op.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like I'll just
Let's go have a sleepover
Yeah, I'll just go home with Katie
Yeah.
from co-op.
Mhm.
Is that
for the
how,
weekend.
Is that like how it was? I can
Yes,
imagine. That's
for
how it
sure.
would be.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah. We did that a lot.
That's- Yeah.
We did do that a lot.
Yeah.
We had sleepovers a lot.
I mean, I think a lot of our socialization ended up being on Fridays because that was just when everybody was in the same place.
That's like how it was for me, but I didn't have a co-op group. My main socialization was church.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which my sister and I were talking about that. I was telling her that we were recording this episode. We don't feel like it was a great thing that our primary socialization before public school was church, because how people act in church is completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Like church kids, and then just being in the church environment,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Well, people act completely different on Sundays than they do
Yes.
Saturday or, Monday
Yeah.
through Saturday.
Mhm. And so you get a completely different side of people, and it's in no way preparing you for the real world.
Yeah.
Just like having primary socialization in church. So whenever I started public school, I was like traumatized because
You're like, what is this?
well, no, it was like I was old enough to know that going into it, I was going into it, and that like it was like I was meeting a different species of human.
Yeah.
Like I was going to be spending primary time with totally different people.
Yeah.
And I knew that, and it's totally psyched me out, and that's where all of my social anxiety started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Versus like if you were just raised with that, then
Yeah. It's not quite as jarring or shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say that kids in public school don't experience social anxiety. I think I would have still, just because of who I am.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would have been to the magnitude that it was.
And not to say that like people who come from private school or public school into homeschooling they don't experience, I'm sure that they
Culture
experience
shock.
a culture shock of sorts as well.
Did you experience any culture shock going from high school to college?
Well, in a lot of ways. So I don't think that being homeschooled had like a ton to do with it. I think I grew up in a town of 2,000 people, and even if I had gone to public school within that town, my graduating class wouldn't have been more than 100. So it would have been really small anyway. And then I went to a very large public university that had, at that point, I think 38,000 students. So, and I also was not mentally well. And it took me many years to figure that out. But at that point, I was really in the heights of like just being a complete, like totally drenched in my anxiety. And so I did not enter my first year very well. I was not super successful, but I stuck it out, and I came back from it, which was great. But yeah, that first year was really hard for a lot of reasons. I don't think I was ready to go.
Yeah.
But I don't know at this point that I would associate that with having been homeschooled at all. I feel like being homeschooled prepared me for the workload and the type of school I was doing, more so than my not having been prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Even just hanging out with people who had, from all over the place, who had been, different stages, or like they'd gone to different schools. They came from different parts of the state or the country or the world. Like that wasn't a huge issue for me, but I had socialized. That sounds so like formal, but I'd known public schoolers and I dated public schoolers. So, it's funny talking about this now whenever you're like in your late 20s, because it's like, oh my gosh, it throws you back to high school whenever it was like totally different sets of people, like different species, right?
Yeah,
I know.
You have homeschoolers, you have public schoolers, you have private schoolers, but that's the way you have to look at it. So, so I had experience with all kinds of different people, heading into college, that there wasn't like a huge shock in that way. I will say that one of the bad, quote unquote, bad things I would say about homeschooling with my experience is that it's not a very diverse group. Like the group that Katie and I were a part of, was predominantly white, although we did have some black families. It was predominantly white, and they were all Christian to some degree. We did have some like Jewish families and stuff like that. So there was a little bit of diversity, but in order to be a part of the group, you had to like sign a statement of faith, which was fine. I mean, that was what they wanted to raise their kids in, and people who were participating in it were agreeing to that particular stipulation. But I just will say that like the experience with that was not super diverse. I don't know that it harmed me all that much, because outside of enrichment and co-op and all of that, my mom is wonderful, and she's always been the kind of person that like people are drawn to her, and she has all kinds of people around all the time. And of course we had like family, outside family and stuff. So I don't really feel like I missed out on anything, and I don't think I was like blindsided whenever I went off to college and had such a diverse group of people that I was surrounded by all the time. Yeah. But I think people who like, if that's something that's really important to you and raising your children, if you're considering homeschooling, just be cognizant of the fact that it kind of can be a little bit of a bubble.
Yeah,
a
for
bubble.
Sure.
I'm sure you can find groups that like fit your, you can find people, especially now, because when we were homeschooled, it was a lot less common.
Yeah.
And at this point, post 2020, literally everybody in the country has been homeschooled at this point. Yeah, so you're all homeschoolers now. Woohoo. But it's just become every year, it's like more and more people are choosing that. So I'm sure that it's easier to find, if that's something that's important to you, it's easier to find a group that fits those same desires and values.
Yeah. I think I definitely went through a culture shock phase. So my first job outside of nannying I was quote unquote, they called us models at Abercrombie.
Oh, that's right.
And it was the first time I ever heard of people cussing and talking about what I thought was inappropriate things, and talking about drinking and talking about all the things they do. And it was just really, ew, I don't want to be here. This is not what I'm used to.
Yeah. This feels wrong.
Yeah, this feels gross.
Yeah.
I learned what the F word was whenever I was 8 or 9 from my best friend at the time, her neighbor. She was our age, and she taught us what it was. But she was a public schooler. So
yeah.
I went and told my mom that she told me that, and it's just funny, something that we bring up regularly. It's the public schooler taught her what the F word is, and she's only 8.
Yeah, I
never used it, but it's a funny anecdote.
Yeah. I feel really conflicted, because I do feel like whenever you were talking about how they have to sign that they agree to these terms because this is how people want to raise their kids.
Yeah.
And I can't really fully speak to that because I don't have kids. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But
none of us do.
Yeah, I can say from a kid that was raised
like that. A former kid.
A former child that was raised in a sheltered home, which I would say was not the most sheltered home.
Oh, yeah.
We watched a lot of rated R movies. Way too young. But but it's being in those bubbles, like, you know, even though I was never part of a co-op group, I was part of a church, which that's going to be a whole different conversation, that was very whitewashed and didn't have a lot of diversity. And I just kind of, I do have these conflictions where I'm like, where are you teetering the line between manipulating the child and raising them?
Yeah, I would agree with that. My two sides of the line would be helping and harming.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, depending on what you believe and what your expectations and desires are for your child, growing them up in a community that you think is going to give them, like, instill in them values and stuff like that, that's great, because I think the intentions behind that are are good. But whenever you're putting them, like, if your intention is to do that, and I went to a co-op at one point that was, and this is another one of my bad things, super legalistic. Like, we couldn't even wear, like, as a young girl who didn't have breasts, you couldn't wear like baby doll tops with an elastic as a child, because I guess it was too enticing. Whenever you're like 8, you couldn't wear. So and they like had t-shirts from some of the women's husbands that they would like make you put on over if they felt as though, and it wasn't just the little girls, it was like the moms too. So I'm like, and so it was very legalistic. It was very old school in such a way that it was like, all these adolescent boys, these are the ones we're protecting.
Yeah.
Whenever you have 8-year-old girls and adult women who, you know, so I think whenever you get on that side of things, that you can potentially be harming your children, because you're putting them in a circumstance that is not, or in a situation, an atmosphere that is not helping them gain in the way that you want them to, because it's so restricted.
Yeah. I even feel like I would still call myself a Christian in a very, like,
it's very personal, right, though? It's like
in the sense of, like, I believe in Jesus, I love Jesus, that's about it. Like, and literally everything else I have no idea, and I don't really care to know. Like, whenever we get into topics about like modesty and what's right, what's wrong, I'm like, I cannot it's not even the point. It's not even the point. So why are we even talking about it? But that's where I think it's just like a personal thing for me, that, I mean, to put it in perspective, from me, I was raised homeschooled so that I could be raised in a, you know, safe Christian community. And most of my socialization was through church. So all of that considered, raised very, very Christian. And I think I might be the only remaining Christian in my family. You know, like, my mom's not a Christian anymore. Like, all of those, she's married to, I would say, somebody who's agnostic, I think is what I would call him. And he was also raised Christian. My 2 older brothers, one of them is, I don't think either of them would consider themselves Christian. I know for sure one of them is not a Christian, but like, the faith is not important to virtually any of my family anymore. And so, like, to me, there's this dichotomy where I'm like, I feel like what I was raised in was just like all manipulation, you know? And
I'm certain that in our community that we went to school with, like, I don't feel like that with my experience, but I'm sure that there's other kids we grew up with or other families who definitely feel that way. So I definitely, I'm a Christian, and I do believe in the Bible and stuff, and I don't want to say practice, because that sounds so like clinical, but that's still a really important lens with which I view the world and make decisions and stuff like that. But I do think I definitely went through what's the word?
Deconstruction.
Yeah, I definitely went through a deconstruction phase where I kind of had to make it my own and contend with, you know, the things that I was taught as truth, and not just from my parents and the churches that we went to growing up. We went to a lot of different churches, but also like what you learned from the community in homeschooling that you wouldn't necessarily have learned in a public school setting. So
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Seeing things, I'll try to put this into the words I'm trying to find, but a rainbow lens. I'm thinking of like a rainbow lens where
rose-colored glasses.
Yep. Because in the Christian community where we grew up, especially, it was like black and white. Like
okay, I see what you're saying.
You're modest. You go to church every Wednesday. You go to youth group. You go to church on Sunday. You know, it's just all very routine and not organic. I think putting on different lenses was hard.
Just because the scope of your world is so small.
Very small.
So I think that's probably true for a lot of people, even outside of the homeschool community, that they, you know, that you get into a routine with it. I think that's just kind of a danger with faith in general, but I think it's just so important for it to be something that's really personal, and it's something that you've chosen for yourself. And whenever you're raised up in a community like homeschooling, where it is kind of just expected of you, because at the end of the day, like, you sign a statement of faith, it's just a signature on a piece of paper, and some people just don't even care, like they just want them to be a part of it. And then just because your parents sign it doesn't mean that your kids or the kids that you're raised up around are believe in the same thing. So like I do think saying like, oh, I was raised in a conservative Christian community, I think that has its limits.
I think it just like really, like, aside from the religion side of it, it deeply hurts my heart now when I look back on it, how small-minded I became. I can't speak for you guys, but like how small-minded I was for so long because I wasn't exposed deeply to other religions, other belief systems, other ways of life, other different types of people, you know, just in general, that I feel like is literally what makes our world so beautiful and so rich, you know, that I feel like because we had to be good Christians, I don't know, it was like, so we missed out on what I feel like is a critical part of human life.
My experience was definitely different from yours. Like, I don't
think
well, I mean, I think but I think it has, with homeschooling on all levels, it has so much to do with who your parents are. Like so much to do with who your parents are.
I think that it sounds like your parents were like super
my mom,
balanced.
Well, my mom, like, both my parents went to public school, and I probably should have said this from the beginning, but a big part of the reason why they decided to homeschool us, like, I have an older brother, he's 4 years older than me, and so after I was born and they were just kind of getting to the point where they were looking at putting him in school, they ended up meeting somebody in a park, and they had literally never heard of homeschooling before. And my mom was talking to this couple, and they started talking about homeschooling. And that I've kind of alluded to the fact that there's been struggles in my family. It's not just within my direct family unit, but outside of that as well. And these are things that my parents really wanted to contend with and kind of fix with us. That sounds really bad, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, they had goals
they wanted to do right by you.
How the family was going to be to change. Like, they wanted better for us. So they met this couple in the park, and they were just like, oh, well, there's this homeschooling thing, I guess. This was like early 90s, when at this point in America, homeschooling was like unheard of. But they decided to take a chance on it. And I think they were probably one of the like pioneering families in our area who really got started with it. And saying all of that, my parents, like, they came from public school backgrounds. They came from very, like, some, hurt and broken and dysfunctional families. And so I think they had so much grace for the people around us and who they allowed in our life. And like, you just kind of had to have it with certain family members and stuff as well, that the way we were raised, it wasn't like we were completely sheltered from the realities of humanity and like that people are broken and that they're not perfect, and that, you know, being a Christian doesn't make you perfect and without fault. And so I think I had a pretty healthy balance with it, just because of how I was raised and the fact that my parents didn't go so far as to shelter us from different kinds of people. Like, they actually welcomed all kinds of different people into our circle.
Yeah.
And like I said, people were just drawn to my mom.
Yeah, I don't think, no, my parents were never like exclusive, like, oh, you can't be friends with
Yeah.
these people
Oh, yeah.
or something like that. It was just kind of like the culture that formed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
When all
for
those
every
people
person,
are put together.
it's so, for every person, that experience is so different. Like I said, this is my experience.
Yeah.
Having been brought out of it, but I can already tell that Katie feels differently, that she feels as though, you know, her coming out of it, she might have felt like she had a little bit like a small-mindedness. And we went to the same enrichment all of high school and spent a lot of time together. So I just think I wouldn't have said that I was small-minded. I don't think I was fully aware, but whenever it came to actually meeting people who were of different persuasions, different religions, different races, different backgrounds, I was not shocked, or like, I didn't have difficulty contending with that. Like, I was, and I'm not sure that you were saying like you were small-minded or anything, but
No, I was.
yeah. Okay. Well, I was very open-minded to it, just because I think I think partly that was my personality toward things, but then also what I saw in my parents and what I saw in my mom mostly.
I think for me, it felt like it set a really, really unrealistic expectation for the rest of my life, which thankfully I've grown out of now, you know, but like, I can't even explain it. And I don't even think that it was something that my mom tried to instill in us. It was just, or that even she played a major role in, other than the churches that we went to, you know, where it just felt like the Pharisees, like, oh, like we don't associate ourselves with these types of people.
Right.
And I keep thinking about Scientology. Have you guys watched any of?
I haven't. It's so on my list though. Yeah.
Oh,
Big
it's
time.
so heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
It is so like, and the most heart-wrenching part about it for me was not just that it was happening, but like, it's literally a cult.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
full on a cult. It's like a cult and a MLM at the same time.
Yes. Well, I mean, MLMs
are a cult.
Cults.
That's true.
Not all of them, but they're kind of cult-like.
Yeah. And so I was watching that, and it reminded me so much of the churches that I grew up in, which was the saddest part about it, other than like the money grabbing. And even still, there was like a little bit of that, you know, with tithing and stuff like that. But yeah, it reminded me of just kind of like the way that they trained them to think and kept them in their circle, and they did all of that. If you know anything, do you know anything about Primal Branding?
Yes.
Okay, so Primal Branding, it's a book by Patrick Hanlon. Did I talk about this last time?
No.
Oh, I didn't? Oh,
No.
I feel like I did. Primal Branding is a book by Patrick Hanlon, and it talks about, he basically breaks down in this book, what are these really, really big companies like Nike and Google and Apple that have just stood the test of time. Like, they just, years after years after years, they continue to just be, you know, the top dogs.
Yeah.
And he breaks it down into 7 things called the Primal Code. And it is exactly how cults work. Because there are things like sacred words that we use. So like within the Christian community, there's the Holy Trinity, there's communion. You know, the communion would be a practice, which is a ritual in Primal Branding. There's
baptism.
Yeah, baptism, stuff
There's a
like
lot
that.
of symbolism too.
Yeah. Holy Spirit would be lexicon or sacred words. There's creation story, your creed, which is your belief system. Your non-believers is one of the 7 elements of the Primal Code. And so it just like, it's so hard because there is, so all those things can make a cult when taken to the extreme. Yeah. But all of those things are also just how humans operate. Yeah. That's just human nature. And you bond through primal, what would you say? Like your primal nature. Yeah. You know, where we all have words that we, like inside words, like, my God, Gary, you know, like that is primal branding, you know, or girl stop, you know, that it's like an inside joke. And then we all have beliefs that we align with each other. And we all
build
have
whole communities around. Like, it's just how we,
And so basically for me, I have such a hard time with like, you see something like Scientology and the parallels within the Christian community, or at least the churches that I grew up in. And I'm like, it's disgusting, you know, but then like you think about it and you're like, okay, but like,
is it really the Bible or is it people?
Wrong? And how much of it is wrong and how much of it is just nurture versus nature, you know, and it all just like gets really blurred because what, are you going to stop doing the thing that's just your primal nature? Yeah. But does that mean you should take advantage of it? No. But are those the things that naturally come out of those systems? Yeah. You know? And so I don't know. It's just, I feel like that is what I struggle with, is that like, I don't know how much of everything that I learned was like nurture versus nature. Like what was taught to me by my surroundings, versus just like what is just human tendencies. Yeah. You know, and
when we kind of talk about it, like I think having heard this from you is that like it matters so much as somebody who grew up homeschooled in a conservative Christian community. It matters so much what you are easily influenced by. Yeah. And what marks you. Yeah. And so like for you, it sounds like your experience in those churches was something that was very influential, not in a positive way, but something that was very influential and really kind of marked you and changed the way that you viewed the world. Whereas for me, I didn't have that. So therefore, you know, my influences were more positive and helped. Yeah. So I think it comes down, I mean, the three of us having been raised in a similar way, for the most part, can have such different, because we are individually so different from one another. One of the other bad things, I think, is that it's super expensive. Like homeschooling is so expensive.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because you pay for everything. With public school, it's for the most part tax funded. So they get to go to school for free. They ride the school bus for free.
Got to buy your school supplies, and then if you're in sports, you got to pay for not choir, band. Yeah, you got to pay for some stuff there, but
for the most part, yeah. Whereas in homeschooling, like your parents have to pay for all the curriculum. There's so much gas involved in driving. You have to pay for all the individual classes and then any activities. You have to pay for club sports. And then also on top of that, which probably is like the nail in the coffin, is that you're most likely sacrificing one salary. Like with our mom staying home, neither of them are bringing home a salary. And that kind of goes into it as well. So it's super expensive.
Opportunity lost.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's the most expensive option, because I'm sure that there's like private schools and boarding schools that outweigh that by a lot. But compared to public school, it's definitely a very expensive option. Kind of talked a little bit about how groups can be legalistic and be like really rigid and unreasonable with their rules. One of the things that I can speak to on that is that in middle school, and this is the group that I was with the longest. It was our second group. One of my best friends in middle school, their family actually got kicked out of the group because their dad showed up to bring them lunch and he was wearing a hat. And it was like against the rules to wear hats. Because again, we did these groups in churches. So it's against the rule to wear hats. However, like certain people were allowed to wear hats. Like little kids could wear hats and moms could wear hats. Like the vast majority of the people who were there, except for
why does
dads.
that matter?
But he just showed up to bring lunch. So he was there for maybe like 5 minutes, and he was standing in the lobby. And one of the moms approached him and asked him to take his hat off. And if y'all had known him, he was kind of a little bit ornery. He was like, I'm literally just here for 5 minutes. I'm not going to do that. And once she challenged him on it, he was like, no, I'm really not going to do it. And it kind of got overblown, and their family got kicked out. So,
dang.
Yeah. So I do think like some of the groups can be super, super rigid and super legalistic. So that's definitely on the bad side of things for me.
Yeah.
That's the same group who wouldn't let 8-year-olds wear baby doll tops, believe it or not. We could wear gauchos, though. Gauchos were so fun.
What a suffocating life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
We didn't last there very long. Once that friend's family got kicked out, we actually, my mom and a group of other moms, including this friend's family, started their own enrichment for a few years before we ended up joining the one that I was in for high school. I think probably because of the legalism and all of that. I think that's partly why people are so, like, they don't care to understand homeschoolers, or why they could be really judgmental. And to me, that's kind of a bad side of homeschooling as well, is that you're having to kind of justify yourself to the outside world.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that people understand.
Yeah.
And they don't care to understand.
There's a stigma with it.
There's a huge stigma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate in that my boss was homeschooled.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so whenever he was hiring, or we were interviewing, he was like, first of all, I'm pretty sure he was under the impression that I was like a big extrovert. And I have no idea why he thought that, because whenever he was interviewing me, he was like, working from home. He's like, you never worked from home before. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, do you think that you would like it? He's like, I'm used to it because I was homeschooled. And so I'm like used to like working on my own.
Yeah.
And I was like,
me too.
Me too, bud.
He's like, cool, you're hired.
Yeah. And he was like,
weirdos will stick together.
That's awesome.
He's like, oh, I didn't know that. And I think that was the thing that actually convinced him that I would be okay. Although 2 years into working from home, I did start to deal with some major cabin fever.
Yeah.
I'm not that much of an introvert.
Yeah.
2 years into it, I think
nobody is.
Yeah, I think I need to see some new scenery. But yeah, I feel like outside of that, I didn't really have to combat that much. And that's probably because I got out of it at a young age.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I finished.
Yeah.
Did you have to combat it? Because I definitely did.
I don't think, no, not really.
And I did, though, have to combat the fact that I never finished school. That was always like a weird thing. It was like one of those things that you don't really share unless you absolutely have to in order for something to make sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you're just kind of like, so I never got a high school diploma. I got my GED when I was 22. What? Yeah.
I think people are going to be judgmental about that regardless of whether you were homeschooled or in private.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If and I think it's so dumb because everybody's on their own journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're doing just fine.
I am doing great.
Yeah.
And I'm actually at a point where I'm like, I don't even really believe in school that much. Like, unless you're in a very particular,
like a trade school or something.
Yeah, like a trade school. Like you need to, I was going to say an electrician, but you can learn that on the job. Apprenticeships, or if you're studying to be a doctor, a surgeon, like all those things, a lawyer, that you need that type of schooling for. I think most things you don't need that type of schooling
I
for.
think we do over school.
Yes,
I think we big time over school.
Like, I don't think it's completely useless by any means. I just think it's, over school. Like, there's way too much that you could just, I mean, there are even so many people that go into careers and they're like, I don't even use 75% of what I learned.
I don't remember how to, and I don't care to retrain myself on how to do long form division.
Yeah.
Because I've literally never touched that again in my life.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to go into engineering or something like that, maybe. But, you know, you'd learn that in college if that was something you were pursuing.
I came across this guy that when I was a valet at a hospital, and one of the DAs he had, you know, you would make banter with the employees coming in and out of the hospital and stuff like that. And so him and I got into this conversation one time where he was like, yeah, kids these days, they like don't even know how to do like some sort of really basic type of math and like something else. And I was like, but we don't need to anymore.
Yeah.
And he was like,
we got a calculator on our phone.
Yeah. I was like, we can do more advanced things because we have other things that can do that for us, you know? And he was like, oh, that's true.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know.
Why do people want to believe that the next generation is just ruining us? Like every generation wants to believe that. Like you realize that they're literally our future, right?
Yeah. Why be so hard on them? And also, we're the ones raising them.
Exactly.
So if you're going to be so hard on the next generation, maybe you need to look at yourself. So I work in events, and I have for a while now. And I used to work specifically in sports, and I was running a junior college men's national golf tournament. And there were a couple of coaches that at one point were having a conversation next to me. And they were specifically talking about school shootings. And the older coach was saying like, oh, with this happening so often, people are going to want to start homeschooling their kids now because they don't want them to be around that. And the younger coach looked at him and he goes, no, because then they'd all end up being weird. And like they'd end up being weird. And like, I can't even remember all he said, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, you would prefer to put your kids at risk with a school shooting than have them turn out to be weird homeschoolers. And obviously that's not like the comparison. Like he wasn't saying like that's preferable to being a weird homeschooler, but like that's how it came off.
Yeah.
And at that point I was in my master's degree and working full time. And I don't know why, but I was just in a mood. And I looked over at him and I was like, well, I was homeschooled and I'm getting my master's degree and I have a 4.0 and I work full time. And then I was like, it was not really all that cool of a moment, but I felt like mic drop a little bit.
Yeah.
And they were like, ooh, and then they moved on. But I was like,
Nice.
Just every once in a while you hear these things where you're just like, you feel like you're past the homeschool rhetoric a little bit and the judgment. But hearing that, I was like, no, like, you can be homeschooled and turn out normal. No.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I don't understand is how people get like that far in life and think and like still believe in stigmas.
I mean, he was from Odessa, Texas, so that might be part of it.
No excuse. There's no excuses for you, man, if you're listening. I just feel I'm like, how do you get that far in life and like not know that stigmas are not true?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, would you guys ever homeschool your kid?
I don't really want to have children.
Well, say you were.
I don't want to have children of my own. Like I want to adopt and all of that possibly one day. Yeah.
That's how we
adopt
are too.
And
We don't
foster
wanna have our
possibly.
own. We just want to adopt.
Yeah. Which is outside the norm for homeschool people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not pushing out babies by the time you're 20 whatever years
One.
old. Yeah, 21 really. Yeah, you're not doing it right.
You don't even get to drink yet. You got to be pregnant the whole time.
Yeah. You don't ever get to drink. Jesus
That
drank
is
wine,
true.
but you don't ever get to drink.
Jesus
Yeah.
freaking turned water into wine.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, all these people just drank all the wine. They're all sloshed. Let's make some more wine.
Yeah. No, if I ever have children, I probably would look at doing a private school situation. I'm not averse to homeschooling, and especially like, you know, I don't see myself having kids, period. But I don't see myself being a parent for many years. And at that point, I would just have to see what the homeschooling situation looks like, because I think it's going to change a lot.
I think I would homeschool my kids actually, but I would do it very different from.
Yes.
I would like there would be a huge emphasis on like proper socialization activities, things like that I feel like I really didn't get to do.
Yeah.
And the only reason is not because I want to raise them super legalistic Christian or anything like that. I don't think anybody's going to think that after everything I've said today. But
No.
yeah. But because I just don't want a public school system raising my kids.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
where it's like, it's literally so many kids are being monitored, but they're not being parented.
No,
Yeah.
You know?
whenever I was teaching in high school, I had at most, I had 18 students in my classroom,
Right.
and I had them for 50 minutes.
Right.
And then, like throughout the day, I think the smallest class size I had was 10. But again, you see them for 50 minutes in the course of a day, where you see like close to 200 students.
Yeah.
They don't get that one-on-one time
I
that
just-
you would hope that they were getting.
Yeah, I just think that it's a little bit out of our natural design to be in a system like that, where it's just a bunch of kids with kids, you know, in terms of like, and they're all being monitored, but they're not like being parented except for in the late afternoons and evenings.
If even at that point, like I think part of it is that parents, they work all day long, and then
they're tired.
Kids have to do homework at night, or they have, you know, practice for whatever sport or band or whatever. Like, I just think, again, it goes back to being over-schooled. Like, the amount of time that you spend in a public school setting takes away so much of your time that you could be doing other things that would potentially enrich your life better.
So I think I would, but I would have to be in a position where I can be like a stay-at-home mom, and I would probably still work a part-time job, because I'm like you. I'm like, I don't ever see myself not working. Yeah. But I would probably work like a small part-time job that I could do, but I would have to like be able to dedicate. Like, my main priority would have to be that. Yeah. And I would make it so much fun. Like, it would be so much fun. Yeah. I would just be, if I did it, I would be all in, you know? And yeah, I think I would. And maybe even only up until like high school.
I'm starting to think that. I'm like, I think that there is benefit to keeping them home when they're little.
Yes.
Like up until maybe, I don't know. When do they start testing? I guess they start testing in 5th grade these days. Standardized testing.
I don't know. It's homeschooled.
Yeah. I think they start testing in 5th grade. But so I don't know, like maybe up until then. What about you? You'll homeschool your kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have big plans.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're excited.
Yeah. That's good.
But I'm excited to homeschool them and give them the best schooling experience they can have all the way until they graduate high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I I would love to have eventually a piece of land and make like a schoolhouse.
Oh my gosh.
With lots of windows, and we're gonna plant a garden, and we're gonna have chickens.
You're gonna be like Joe March.
Yes.
I don't know who that
Goals.
So Little Women, Joe March. So then there's Little Men, and Joe March grows up and she starts a school with her husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to come to your school.
Yeah,
Shoot.
same.
You
that's
can
funny.
come and teach the subject.
Yeah. So contrary to popular belief, I don't really have a whole lot to talk about on the weird side of things, aside from what we've already mentioned. You talk about how like every homeschooler we know, for the most part, has been pulled into an MLM at one point.
Yeah.
True. I don't, like you can name all kinds of different ones. Like at some point, somebody has got sucked in.
What is like the primary one though?
This is going to be super controversial, but Young Living.
Young Living.
Super controversial.
I love Young Living.
It's okay to love it and to love the product.
Yeah.
But
Young Living is the top tier.
Yeah.
MLM.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? To an extent, like depending on when you get in, if you get on the ground floor and you do well with it, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For every other person who gets in on it and is a victim of the system, and the people at the tippy top are getting all the money, that's whenever it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
But definitely Young Living, and then what? World Ventures was one, right?
World Ventures. Unique.
Yeah, Unique. Advocare.
Oh yeah,
Advocare. Plexus.
Monet.
I didn't know a lot of. Oh,
Monet.
Yeah, that was a big one. Yeah.
My mom was invited to it, and I don't even know a whole lot about this, but like the Pampered Chef stuff, like people would have Pampered Chef house party things. It sounds a lot more intense than it is, but like they'd basically invite you over and have all this product and try to get you to buy it.
Yeah.
So Yeah, there's a lot of that. And I kind of get it because, like, especially with moms, they're not working. And that's something that's pretty easy for them to get into to try to make some extra money. From home.
Yeah.
But...
Which is why I'm so thankful for this day and age where there's so much online.
Yeah. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be a doula so that I can do that whenever I want to.
Yeah.
And just bring in some extra income here and there.
Yeah.
But still be a homeschool mom.
Which one did you almost get pulled into?
I didn't really almost get pulled into anything. It just looked attractive.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. They make it look really, really good.
They make it look like you're
Yeah.
going to be successful overnight.
Yeah.
They spend all their money making it look good rather than paying people.
Yeah.
Well, and then they were like, okay, you can do this, but you have to pay to get started, kind of thing.
Yeah, like
it's like,
$250.
That's a great business strategy for the people who are making that money.
I got pulled into Mary Kay. Not once, but twice. Twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Delina, you gotta learn that lesson the first time.
Dude, I did not. I learned it the second time, though.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about dating versus courting. Because that's a weird side of homeschooling. So, courting, there's so many things about like in the homeschool community that's so old school. And I feel like courting is one of those things now. It's a nice concept on its face. But courting, for those who are unaware, is whenever a young man and a young woman want to see together. They fancy each other, and they want to see each other. In the conservative homeschool Christian community, you should only date if you plan to marry that person.
Because dating is just practice for divorce, guys. So
breaking up.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah.
This is your
warning. So there were a lot of people that we went to school with or were homeschooled with who they were courting families where the expectation was that if you're going to be allowed to see somebody, you better be prepared to marry them.
And you had to ask permission to date.
From the parents. Yeah.
Did you guys ever get into a courtship?
No.
Yeah.
You did?
Kind of. I mean, this boy had to ask for my dad's permission to even date me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, but the person I was interested in most of high school was a part of a family who very much had those values and those expectations. And that was not something that my parents were teaching us or expecting of us. Mm-hmm. So there was a mismatch on that, and it kind of led to some goofy things along the way. So like to the point that I don't, neither of us, were never like a thing. I mean, we were a thing, but we weren't a thing.
Yeah.
Because we were teenagers. We were 15, 16, 17 years old. So, could have, did not. But yeah, I think very, very well could have. Mm-hmm. And I, in that particular circumstance, I probably would have been fine with it. But yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting one. Dating, however, dating was interesting.
Wait, with courtships, was it true? Because like, I don't know if this was true for all courtships or just for like certain kinds of courtships, I guess. Yeah.
The parents get to make the rules, so they're different. Yeah. And usually it's both parents, the boy and the girl's parents.
It's no better than
they
an arranged marriage.
Yeah, gotcha. It's you have a little bit of choice in the matter.
Okay.
Yeah, but only a little.
Yeah, it's like
there's a lot of expectations.
Might as well just get an arranged marriage.
You better be dang sure that you're marrying that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's going to be a whole family meeting about it.
No, literally. Yes, literally.
And also, let's hop on the fact that some of these courtships require a escort.
Yeah.
Like,
shut up.
Like you can never be alone in the presence of this other person.
They'll sit in the back seat and not, they'll ignore you.
Maybe.
But like, if you go to dinner, they might, if you're lucky, sit at another table. but they'll always be there watching you.
How do you even get to know each other?
So creepy.
Exactly. You don't.
Nobody talks the same in a group of 3 as they do in a group of 2.
Especially
that's
if you have feelings for one another. Like you're going to be totally different if there's a third party.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that if you're lucky, this person might, sit 6 feet away from you and try to ignore you. But you know they're listening.
Yeah. Unless you've got like a really good like sibling or something who's like, okay, mom and dad, I'll do this. And then they just
leave you alone.
F off and they go do their own thing. And they'll be like, okay, I'll pick you up later. Don't tell mom and dad.
Yeah.
Which that never happened to me, just to be clear.
Yeah, I believe it.
So it is generally true that in courtships, there's no hand holding.
Right.
Or kissing.
Of
or
course.
Really any physical affection outside of maybe a hug.
A side hug.
Side hug. Christian side hug.
Yeah.
I have known of people who courted and did not kiss until their wedding day.
Same.
In front of you may kiss your bride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it is really awkward every single time because it does not go well. Some things you can practice a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
You won't go to hell for kissing somebody.
Yes. But it opens the floodgates.
I know. It's a what they say. It's like they say marijuana is like what the starter drug or the
what do they call it? The gateway.
The gateway drug. Yeah,
Yeah.
kissing is the gateway drug to everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full frontal hugs are the gateway to everything else.
Oh my gosh, nothing's been truer.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Yeah, God forbid.
My chest touch your chest.
Yeah, so outside of courting, dating as a homeschooler, I dated public schoolers. And
How was that?
the first one I pseudo dated, I was 13. It was like the first guy not the first guy, but like the first one that I actually moved on. That's not what I meant to say. I was 13. It's innocent. Okay. No, he's the first one I ever told that I had feelings to. Now he's gay, so glad he found himself. So that was my first experience with it. But yeah, I didn't really date a whole lot until college, like my senior year of high school, and then college. And in college, it was just if I was remotely like not even like really interested in, but if somebody asked me to go to dinner and I was like, oh, I can spend some time around you, I'd go. So I didn't really say no to a lot of people. And then I met Cord. So 8 years later, yeah, so it's just, I don't know, dating was a lot more of what my experience was, and kind of more dating around and stuff like that, not really getting settled down as a high schooler. Rolling my eyes. But yeah, we weren't on the courtship side of things, but then at the same time, I didn't have so much a significant interest in somebody to the point that I said or did anything about it with somebody who was as equally invested in saying or doing something about it, if that makes any sense.
I feel like so much of like Christian homeschool dating though just kind of turned into a blend of like courtship and dating.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like we gotta be careful holding hands.
Yeah.
Gotta be careful hugging too much. You know, kissing too much. You know, like it all just kind of like blended into each other.
We can't close the doors.
Can't close the doors. Nope. One time,
not me.
I just debated for a second whether I wanted to tell this story or not. But one time I was dating a guy, and he was homeschooled, parents and everything, and so they put a video camera in our room, like a little webcam to keep an eye on us
voyeuristic.
while we were playing video games.
That's so creepy.
Oh.
It was so weird. When my mom heard about that, she was like, "What?"
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That is.
She was not happy about
That's
that.
bad.
No,
yeah,
thanks.
that's creepy.
I dated 3. Well, the first one was kind of like a ish. Like we would have been dating if we were allowed to. Type of thing.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 were all public schoolers. This is such
Yeah.
a funny conversation. And then I dated a homeschooler, and then I married a homeschooler.
Yeah.
First homeschooler was the gateway drug, apparently.
Yeah, the gateway drug. And you're like, oh, I gotta have some more of those homeschoolers.
Yeah.
It's because they're raised in the courting
Era.
era
Yeah.
or
apparently.
atmosphere that they're the best husbands.
Yeah.
They're pretty good husbands.
They're pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. I like mine.
You can't
I like
relate.
mine. Can't relate.
Mainly because I'm not married. Yeah, so dating and courting is definitely an interesting thing. There's so many things about homeschooling that's so old school though, like super old school.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like, oh, whenever you graduate high school, you're gonna get married and start popping out babies
Yeah.
and be a stay-at-home mom
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And I didn't want any of those things.
I did.
Yeah, and that's great. That's
Yes.
great. I didn't want any of it. I made it very well known too.
Mm-hmm.
The kids thing is different. That's been a recent past few years thing, but
Same.
like in high school, I was telling multiple people, "Oh, I'm never gonna get married," or "Oh, I'm gonna be a career person.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna get married." Those things have changed a little bit, but
Mhm.
yeah, I've never fallen into that mold that they wanted to put me in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if it's like truly your like the desire of your heart to do that, then that's amazing.
Yeah. I think a lot of it
I
was
agree.
just watching my own mom and how like fun she made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would
Have those
have
desires.
those desires really.
Yeah. Well,
But I mean, from my earliest age,
yeah.
my favorite Barbie was the Barbie with the newborn baby with the
Baby.
stroller and
Oh.
all the baby
See,
clothes.
but that just means that that's like it's your heart's desire.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's totally different than somebody feeling like they should because it's normal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or just doing it because they
That's
have
what's
nothing else to
expected,
do.
Yeah.
They feel like they have nothing else to do, you know. And that's just the natural path of life.
Yeah.
So, but that's totally different. But I felt the same way about you, where I was like, I always wanted to be a working woman.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was within the past, I don't know how long ago we started talking that we both don't want to have kids, at least our own kids. And I want to say it was probably about 4 years ago we started talking about it.
Yeah. I think I kind of started solidifying. I mean, obviously, and I've had
Yeah.
those conversations, but
But I remember thinking when I was a little kid, I was like, I don't know if I want to have my own kids one day. Like,
it started with me with I have absolutely no desire whatsoever, not even a drop, to be pregnant.
same.
Like there's nothing in me.
Guys,
Yeah,
know,
I
you
hear
do.
it from
So
people.
differently
I
about
know.
this.
I know.
I hear it from people that they're just like, I am desperate. I just love the idea of being pregnant.
I love birth. It fascinates the heck out of me.
That's
I
so cool.
think from a textbook perspective, it's all fascinating and women are totally badass. In reality, it totally freaks me out.
See,
it just does. Like
I'm not freaked out by it. Like I'm maybe I'm just far enough in my life where I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I've done a lot. I
Yeah.
could do
Been
that
through
too.
a lot.
Yeah.
I
like-
could. I just really don't want to.
And it's not even for me. It's not even like a I don't want to put my body through that type of thing. It's like so I think what I'm trying to say is like, I'm not trying to avoid it. Like I'm not trying to avoid any discomfort or anything like that or pain.
Yeah.
For me, it's literally just like, I have no desire to have a baby. Like I just don't have any desire to hold a baby in my tummy, to push it out, to raise it.
Yeah.
You know, for it to be my own DNA.
Yeah.
Like I know that that's a big thing for a lot of people, is that they want to carry on their own legacy, and which I don't even know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
there's so many little chillins.
I know.
You know that.
That's really not even what it's about for me either. I mean,
I know, and I don't think it should be.
And it's not so much for me that I want to avoid the discomfort of it or the pain of it. I just want to avoid it. Like the idea, like I think about what it would be like to have a moving thing that is not me, but it is in me. And to carry that for 9 months as it grows and pushes my organs around and stuff like that. Like whenever I go like down a rabbit hole of really thinking about what that would be like. I'm like, absolutely not. No, I just don't know. I'm not, there's nothing in me that wants that. I don't think that personally for me that I have to bring my own children into the world. And but the homeschooling community would have you believe that like, not just homeschooling community, the Christian community a lot of the time too, which they go hand in hand for our experiences, but that is the purpose of
being alive as a woman.
Be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
Which if it were, I don't know, I feel like if it were men who had to give birth, that wouldn't be so.
No.
But it wouldn't be the message, but whatever. I think, and you did this earlier, but just like I often catch myself cracking jokes about having been homeschooled. Like regularly.
I don't know. I was homeschooled.
It's like, I don't know. It's just to deflect something. And it's like the most opportune moment to just be like, if somebody says something raunchy or not even raunchy, but like outside the scope of what we were raised in. And I want to play dumb. I'm like, I don't know. I was homeschooled. I don't know those things. Like I crack jokes about having been homeschooled all the time. I don't think I'll never stop.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I also crack a lot of jokes about going to cosmetology school.
Do you?
Yeah. When people ask me like some super technical question, I'll be like, I don't know. That's why I went to cosmetology school.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, not actually, guys. We're very smart. Okay?
Yeah. Obviously. If you're with us at this point, hopefully you think so. I think it's funny too because I think a lot of the times, like, it doesn't matter how old you get, people are always going to be surprised the first time that they hear that you were homeschooled.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I always get like, people will be like, oh my gosh, you were homeschooled, you're just like not weird.
My gosh, same.
Yeah, I'm like, I actually
it's such a big compliment, actually.
Is it? I'm like, I actually am pretty weird. It's just not in the way you'd expect.
Yeah. True.
Just in like the normal human weird.
Like what they expect is like the,
quiet.
You have like 15 siblings and
you don't know how to socialize.
Yeah, you're, you wear pocket protectors and I can't even think of any other weird things.
A cell phone on your
you have a dad belt clip for your cell phone. Yeah. No.
All of your clothes are either slightly too big or slightly too small
because they're hand-me-downs from
because
your
they're hand-me-downs.
Because
15 siblings.
Thrifted.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's be perfectly clear. There are people who are homeschooled who are exactly like this. These stereotypes exist for a reason.
They do real.
They do be real.
They do be real sometimes.
Yeah.
That's
really
what
I was talking about whenever we went to our little homeschool group in my little town where we grew up. There was a lot of textbooks homeschoolers there.
I can pick out a homeschooler in a crowd and be like, that is or was a homeschooler. For sure.
The funniest thing about you saying that is like, I mentioned homeschool days at Six Flags where, so I think some public schoolers snuck in, but
of course they did.
I would say like a good 95% of the people there were homeschoolers. And you could even pick out of that crowd who the homeschoolers were.
Yeah,
because they were wearing matching shirts or
matching shirts. Yeah,
the fanny packs.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! You could count. Like you could literally spend all day counting fanny packs and never
And I'm
stop.
not like dissing on the French braid. Okay, I love the French braid.
Yeah,
but it's the Little House on the Prairie French braid.
Yeah.
It's not the artfully
greasy,
done.
thin. You know what I'm talking about?
I do,
but you didn't have to say greasy out loud.
Well,
it's
true.
Puts the picture in your mind.
Yep, it really paints the picture.
Yeah.
Just picture it.
You know what? Those homeschool kids were doing what they were told to do, and I have some sympathy for that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't blame them. It's the parents.
Yeah, I blame the parents.
I have no sympathy for it.
Yeah.
But that's true everywhere. But yeah, no, it was always funny to go to homeschool days anywhere, and you could just see like there within every area of of society. There's different levels of different things, but in homeschooling, like you could see the levels of like, oh, these are like these are the homeschoolers that people picture in their mind whenever they hear homeschooler versus like a lot of the people who were there were like, you put them in a lineup with public schoolers and private schoolers, you want to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like frustrating to an extent that shows how like materialistic we are, and that it's like all about looks and stuff. Like it's kind of vain, but it goes down like that's just what people like. You identify people by the way they look. So yeah.
So what is everyone looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward to Sam's birthday on Friday.
Me too.
We're gonna have a little birthday party.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of you guys will be there.
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah, I got a really exciting weekend actually, because I got that, and then Cord's coming into town. It's the Super Bowl, and we're gonna celebrate Valentine's Day this weekend.
That's fun.
Looking forward to Sam's birthday party.
Looking forward to your birthday.
That's the highlight of our week.
Birthday boy. Aww. Cute.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us again for this week's episode of the Womanly Podcast. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media to hang out with us in between episodes and see pieces of our conversations that we don't get to include in these episodes, plus all of our bloopery humanness. We're on Instagram at Womanly Pod and TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter at Womanly Podcast. We hope to hang out with you more there. Have a super womanly week.